Yeah, you can look at their pictures, say, I'm having a vision, you have a dog, a little poodle.
Yeah, you're right. But check up the dog license and all that. Anyway, we're going to be back in 2.5 minutes. You're listening to Night Dreams Talk Radio After Dark.
Selfish and cruel since his youthful days in school. His siblings he never did treat well. His self-centered bent was his dark side lament, with a focus on hypnotizing spells. He memorized laws to help sharpen his claws for a future for which he was bent. The time would surely come when for office he would run and claim he was just heaven sent.
Another politician has just taken center stage. He tells all the people that he loves them so. He comes on like a sage, says with him they should engage. A false prophet selling endless empty prose.
Stepped over dead bodies on his climb to the top. The highest post was his aspiration, but he forgot to read the fine print in the contract that he signed, which caused a U-turn to his final destination. He continued on his pathway of destruction and decay, never thinking that his wicked life would end. He never did take stock that the devil is not mocked, and all those broken fences will not mend.
Another politician has just taken center stage. He tells all the people that he loves them so. He comes on like a sage, says with him they should engage. A false prophet selling endless empty prose. He feels no lament for the lives that he spent. A jackal who thinks he can't be touched.
If you would like to hear Night Dreams Talk Radio on your local radio station, let them know. Tell them to check out www.nightdreamstalkradio.com, and thank you. Do you have a paranormal story you want to share on Night Dreams Talk Radio? You could be a guest. Email us at nightdreamstalkradio@gmail.com.
You're listening to my friend Gary Anderson on Night Dreams Talk Radio, the best in paranormal radio.
Well, not the best, but we are on the radio, right, James?
That's right, and here's Gary.
Yeah, here I am. Well, we're down to the last half an hour and waiting for Sam to call in so we can have a round table. You go buy property somewhere, and depending on where it's at, you don't know. Just like that one thing we were talking about where that detective, they went out and the guy owned property next to the cemetery, his backyard kind of like tied into the cemetery. But somehow on his property, there was a bunch of graves underground that never were moved, or they were never recorded, or they weren't buried on the cemetery property. And was wondering why all these paranormal events were going on a regular basis at their house. They're, the undead or the dead, are trying to, communicate to the owner of the property, hey, look, something is wrong here.
It is. You know what it reminds me of? The ending of the movie Poltergeist, when they found out, hey, we built on top of cemetery, and they're floating around in the hole where the swimming pool is, and all these skeletons are popping up these graves. I mean, it's crazy.
Well, years ago, I remember there were some people got busted, like where they built, homes on property. And, actually it was at one time an old cemetery, and they were supposed to have moved all the graves and moved them over to another cemetery. But, the cost of each, bringing up each, coffin and all it and transporting it and getting permits and all that stuff, evidently they didn't remove all the, remains of all these people, and they built houses on them, and people were claiming that paranormal events were going on.
Well, yeah. Another thing that happened here in Ohio, one of the cases, is they were supposed to move the graves, but instead, like you said, to cut cost, what the guy did, he put them in the walls. He put the bodies in the walls. And that turned out bad in all cases. I mean, that was just awful.
In the walls? Explain. You mean there was he was supposed to move them and there were walls there, and he just like under the walls or in the walls or in the concrete or what?
In the walls. He would put them in the bones in the walls and just put drywall up over them. And it was bizarre. It was a bizarre case because it was so many bodies. It was just all in the walls. And the guy went to prison, too, and it was, to cut costs. And now, here's the thing. That land is going to be tainted for probably ever because look at all those disturbed spirits. It was just, and that's just one case we know of. Imagine back in the 1800s if they was doing that stuff. That stuff don't get reported and people get away with it. And then today you're building a house on a land that maybe that happened. You wonder, where is all this paranormal activity coming from?
Well, years ago, and this was probably about 10, 15 years ago, down in Auburn, Washington, I think it was between Auburn and Kent or somewhere like that, or maybe Auburn and Angola or something like that. They were, building commercial warehouses, and all of a sudden they started turning up all these bones. And it turned out, after they did research, there was the cemetery there at one time, going back probably the 1860s or so, that, just wasn't on the books anymore.
Yeah, and another thing here in the Midwest, especially here in Ohio, there's been farms that go back 100 years, 150, 100 or 200 years, and a lot of the families have owned these, and they would bury their dead right on property and have their own little cemeteries and stuff. Well, some of those, they've got lost in time, with modern times, so there's still graves out there. You might not even know it, and they're building houses on them, pretty much the same scenarios.
Oh, yeah. Right by that old tree up on the hill. Hey, that's good property, and the guy's subdividing his property, right, for real estate to build, homes on it, and people don't realize, well, gee, strange things keep going on in my house. Hey, Sam, are you there?
I am here.
Okay, it's
What's
better.
up, Sam?
That's good you're here and not somewhere else. If you were somewhere else, then you couldn't be here, and then you might not know where you're at.
That's right.
Yeah. So, what did you think about the guest we had on?
It was pretty good. I was starting to except for the little interruption of my laptop that I was listening to the show on, decided to download some updates and drain all my internet speed. And I got some gaps, but I was able to catch a lot of it, and it was very intriguing. I can relate to some of the stories, especially the ones about the paralysis, because I had an incident in a house that had, we bought it back in Kentucky when I was probably about 19 or 20. I was still, the last time I was actually living with my parents. And I was in a room, and I kind of woke up partially with something heavy breathing on me and like a weight, and I couldn't move. And this thing's breathing on me. So I panicked, and I thought about prayer, for instance, and it just instantly let go. So I have had those experiences before in my life.
Yeah, but how did you determine if they're paranormal or ghostly or you're being abducted by aliens?
Well, you don't, do you? I mean, that's the problem. You can't really categorize these things because you don't know what you're dealing with exactly.
Well, I had a lady on almost 2 years ago that claimed, that she was a ghost, was abducting her at night. The ghost would, get on top of her and make love to her. And then I explained to her, I said, how do you know it actually was a ghost making love to you? Maybe it was an alien.
That's a good point.
I've heard that story before from other people.
Well,
Yep.
I guess if you have a child with red hair and blue eyes afterwards, then you might wonder, maybe you have a giant. I don't know. Bad joke.
Thing is, I think these aliens, like we touched on earlier, I think they are in your mind. they know what you like and what will make you drop your guard or and use that against you, and they know what they can use to mimic things like the owls or Jesus or whatever it may be that rings true to you, that makes you calm or not panic.
Yeah, I think so.
You're actually repeating, James, you're actually repeating verbatim a story that I covered in an interview with a friend that was experiencing a tunnel, or effect of, it looked like portal transference while he was in his car. And the boy that was in the camp, it was in a campground, and the boy was looking at a tunnel. He saw a tunnel. He saw all the things that he liked in life. And then he saw his graduation at the end of the tunnel as an older, kid. And he was probably about 8 to 9 years old at that point. So something, here's an example of something reading your mind. And then probably in that particular situation, it was probably to calm him down. But I know of other circumstances or other situations where I think entities will read your mind or scan your mind, like especially with regards to your belief system, and use that to influence the person to make them think that they are like the Savior or God or Jesus or something else. And that I've heard of this case. I know of some cases where I think some of them have been led the wrong way because of that.
Oh, definitely. Have you guys ever seen the miniseries Taken from Steven Spielberg way back, I don't know, around the early 2000s, mid-2000s? It kind of touched on that, where the aliens, all through the years, they would use what you like the one guy, he was abducted all through his life, but when he was a little kid, the aliens would show like an ice cream truck pulling up like in the 1950s or something, and he as a kid would go out and think he's getting ice cream, and he's in a ship getting all this stuff done to him, and he's thinking he's getting an ice cream cone and stuff. But that was one example. But they would use your thoughts against you.
Just like you're trying to lure, like us, in the case with animals, we lure animals with bait or with some kind of thing that we like, or they like. But in a more intellectual sense, they are using it to entice us to either follow them or as you say, it make you more susceptible to abduction.
Well, can you imagine this? Right? They come to you while you're sleeping, and all of a sudden, like you like ice cream, like you were just mentioning, James, and I think I vaguely remember something like that. Well, okay, well, hey, we got ice cream. The ice cream man's here, so you're getting out of bed. Or you don't even realize you're in bed. You think maybe you're in your house. You're walking out to go get the ice cream. And actually, what's happening is you're being taken aboard a ship. And now you're getting handed that ice cream, right? And you're eating it, and you taste it and all that stuff. Well, all the time you're eating it and tasting it, they're examining you, they're prodding you, they're sticking needles in you and doing all this stuff. I can actually see that because they can use your mind, and it's like they hypnotize you, so you don't even know what's going on. You're going in a reality dream. That's what I think. Yeah, absolutely. I think they use your thoughts against you, and you know what? Here's the thing: just the whole essence of that is evil. I mean, if you think about it, I mean, it's just wrong.
Well, it's deception. Anything that involves deception, in my opinion, is not right. It's evil.
Well, just remember this, guys. You'd go to prison if you did that with somebody.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's just wrong. It's wrong. And here's the thing that people say they're here to help us and all this. Well, by them doing that, they're a liar. They're not true. It's deception. It's wrong. It's negative. It just is. You can church it up any way you want, but it's negative.
Well, James, think about this though. Okay, you're being abducted. Okay, and they're scanning your brain, your thoughts, right? So they're sitting there giving you positive thoughts, right? So They're telling you, hey, we're here to protect mankind. We're watching over you. There's 25 million cloaked spaceships going around the Earth protecting the planet from other mean, entities out there. And they're